Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Hey,
Good morning.
Welcome, everybody. This
Good
is the
morning
Saturday
here.
meeting of the Robotics Society Southern California. There's our cup. Yep. Welcome with our joint club, the Riverside Robotics Society, with Thomas at the helm there, eating his breakfast. So yeah, welcome, guys. For any new faces that I see here, the Robotics Society has been around since the late 70s. We've moved around from place to place, but we've always stayed active. And this pandemic was no different. You know, we went from meeting in person to switch it up online, and now we're getting ready to go back to in person. And that's something that we wanted to. Yeah, yay. That's something we wanted to, discuss today. First, the next meeting for the Robotics Society, we are going to do it in person back at the university. We have a new space reserved for us, a much better, nicer place, an actual conference room with a 4K projector and sound system and the works. With a 360 camera, so we'll be able to live stream our meetings like we were doing before, but a lot nicer for those that can't make it on to their live meetings. And so since we're transitioning over to live in person, we need to discuss what are we going to do about these fully online ones, because that's gonna get too watered down if we're having in-person set the online ones.
Oh, you mean
Ben, I don't know if you were part of that discussion a little while ago, but we thought that maybe we'd stick with the Friday meetings. I'm sorry, not Friday meeting, the Saturday meetings for the second Saturday, the fourth Saturday of the month. Second Saturday in person, fourth Saturday online. And
yeah,
because
we were tentatively discussing that as the going forward, so that we'd do our in-person meeting like we used to on second Saturdays at 10 a.m. and then do the an online one on the fourth Saturday at 10 a.m.
because the Robot Club originally had two meetings more than 10 years ago. We used to meet twice a month.
Oh, you did, huh?
What they used to call the robot party, but it wasn't much of a party.
Right. Well, I don't know. What do you think? So, but Ben, you're thinking that if we have an all-day meeting on the second Saturday that goes till 3 p.m., we're going to be kind of petered out by in 2 weeks.
The way we were doing it before, having one meeting a month for the Robotics Society, and then Thomas is over in Riverside, that made it 2 Saturdays that were an all-day thing.
That's true.
I don't really see the need for a third one online if we're gonna be live streaming the other two.
That's a good point. Yeah, and we'll be live streaming the whole day pretty much, right? Or as much as we can.
Yeah.
I mean, you think, I guess if you think about it more, we weren't thinking too much about it last discussion, but the in-person meeting is an all-day thing. It's not just 2 hours. So that kind of is equivalent of 2 meetings online, really.
That's why we were having the 2, because we were like just doing 2 hours for the onlines.
Yes, I'm starting to, I'm coming over to your way of thinking.
Yeah,
especially if you're going to the Riverside meeting too. I don't know if I can make all those, but yeah, that's another all day, and it's only 1 week later.
Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking. I mean, if we're live streaming both, our Zoom accounts don't have a time limit, so we can stream the entire thing, which is gonna end up a giant video on YouTube, but or maybe we can just live stream the lectures or the show and tells,
Yeah,
something like that, so make the videos a little more digestible.
I would do that unless we want to edit them afterwards, that's work though.
That will take another creation of a new position to edit videos for
Yeah.
that.
I edit all my videos all the time and it's a pain. It'd be good. Yeah, we probably should just turn off the stream during lunch and whatever and business meeting or something, and then turn it on for the lectures and the show and tell. Yeah, like you said. Although, well, yeah, people will have to, it's a little bit hard for people online to know, like, when is it coming? Well, we'll have to have a schedule, stick to our schedule. Like post lunch is at 1:30 and we're streaming begins again and stuff like that.
Can you just turn off the recording for that time? Yeah, you could just leave it on, but turn off the recording.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, just turn off the recording. Yeah, sure.
Yep.
So, but I mean, it's still for people who want to go off and do stuff and come back, then
I wouldn't worry too much about that. I mean, I think if you're streaming, then people say, okay, they'll hear that there's a break for lunch and they'll know. So I wouldn't worry too much about maintaining a schedule if you're able to just turn the stream on and off.
yeah. Well, we always kind of want to schedule anyway, right? So
Sure.
people, who are there don't have to guess like, oh, it's starting at 12:47. Cool. Yeah, I think I'd second your, second your opinion or motion.
I mean, it's difficult enough finding speakers for one meeting a month than to, try to find something for 3 meetings a month.
Yeah, we wouldn't be trying to find speakers for all, though. We never.
No, the fourth
really did.
meeting would just be show and tell.
But we will have to show and tell in the regular meetings anyways.
If we have time. Actually, I guess the point was, when you only have these online meetings and you do show and tell and a lecture, it gets too long. But in person, we have time for both because it's an all day. So, yeah, I'm kind of.
Recording in progress.
That's
And
me.
it gives us a lot more time to work on projects in between meetings than, have one show and tell in the first on person and then have to do something else for the next, week or whatever.
Next, yeah.
So
It depends.
we have an entire month to work on something that, we can show.
Yeah, and there's plenty of time for pretty much everybody on
Yeah.
that Saturday.
And we can also bring back the robot contest and all that stuff.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's important. I mean, that's a big factor. Yeah, I'm kind of a proponent of having time to work on stuff, over the percentage of time versus meetings. I mean, I'm involved with the homebrew robotics as well, and they had a big meeting on this past Wednesday, and they have so that's another one. So I don't know how Camp Peavy gets any work done because he's at like 7 meetings a week or something. But yeah, that's a very.
Let me post in the
So,
chat.
Just a couple thoughts. So for the hybrid users, I guess one of the questions is, do you want to allow, like when you're doing show and tell in person, do you want to allow time for somebody who's dialed in to show something? I guess it just depends on the AV setup in the room.
Well,
the other is that with whatever schedule you choose, probably it should be good just to think about, what happens if there's another variant and they lock things down again or whatever, just to be ready to have a plan. It's not difficult, but just make sure, like, okay, at a certain threshold, something's going to change and we go back to online or whatever, just because it's possible, just be
Hey,
ready.
guys, Riverside did that last time. Riverside ran it at the same time, and we did have a bunch of problems. One of the things we found out was it's real easy to have 2 microphones going at the same time and not know it unless somebody's monitoring the session. Excuse me. And of course, that causes unnerving echoes. The other,
Like, what do you mean 2 microphones going at the same time?
if somebody has we had 3 microphones at one point. We had Alan's microphone, my phone microphone, my cell phone's microphone and a third computer running, and we didn't know it.
In the same meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the setup that we're gonna use at the university is a legit conference room that has a 360 camera, which has its own microphone. So that's the only thing we'll be using. Just a
That's all you're
dedicated.
doing, and nobody else turns on another
No,
connection, you're fine.
there's no need for it. It's all set up there. The room is especially set up for that. And it has a wonderful 4K projector and all kinds of good stuff. I mean, it's a conference room.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
and looking at the logistics of like having someone on Zoom do a show and tell that people in the conference room can share, it looks like everything will just work. I think we're going to be surprised by how well we're able to collaborate's the wrong word, but share the meeting experience between Zoom and in person in March at Long Beach. I don't think we're going to have any of the bandwidth issues. Well, I know we won't. It's
Yeah, we had
set
that
up for
too.
with a native 360 camera. We can seat, I think, about 40 comfortably, maybe even more, between the projector and we may want one person just to. Oh, we will have one person to log in to mute mics, just like I do on our meetings. So I look over the list, and if I see feedback, I'll just mute the mic and stuff like that. So just to chime in, when we were doing 2 online meetings, I was totally cool with that. 1 online, 1 in person, totally cool with that. But now that we're meeting in person, I've and I love robotics, and I love you guys and gals. Don't get me wrong. But 2 full Saturdays a month, and then to with the 3rd Saturday, it seems a bit much. So I guess what I would propose along a line with this is that predicated on the supposition that we're able to share the online experience for the other 2 meetings, that we only need those 2. Now, Carl, if something changes, go back into lockdown, then we're still set up for virtual. But I think we can accomplish this same mix, because we have a lot of people showing up to the online meetings that I've never seen before in the club meetings, which is great. But I think if we're able to complete the online portion of the in-person experience, then I think 2 meetings enough will be fine.
That's what I'm saying. We have the Robotic Society. We can keep it on the 2nd Saturday like before, and then the Riverside in person, and we can live stream both. And I mean, we should be good with that. We're back to normal.
I see. You're combining the 2, as these are brother clubs. So yeah, makes sense.
Can you guys hear me at all?
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to just add some feedback from being remote from the meeting from the Riverside in-person meetup as far as the audio and everything goes. One of the things that was very difficult is that when Thomas had the computer set up kind of in the middle or back of the room, I could not hear the presenters up in front. And there needs to be a way to deal with that. When Thomas gave his phone to Ellie, and Ellie was more up in front near the speaker, the audio came through fine. When Alan was speaking, we could hear him, but then again, there was the interference of the 2 computers with both mics on at the same time, both from the back of the room and the phone that Ellie was using. So that's one piece of feedback that you guys need to be aware of. The second thing is that when Ellie was able to walk around in order to follow Jim and that young fellow from high school, both the video and the audio came through really well by being able to track that. So if the Long Beach venue has an ability to do that kind of thing, I think there would be, it would work out pretty fine for that. But you got to keep that in mind, that trying to pick up sound from the back of a room or something when a presenter is speaking is not really that great as far as the presentation goes. And then you got to be able to focus on the screen. If you're going to use one of these projectors on a screen, you need to be able to capture that screenshot rather than trying to do that from the back of a room also. That won't work very well. Anyway, I'd like to give you that feedback so you might consider the technical logistics of this kind of thing.
And
Thanks.
it gets to be like a studio production that where you need somebody watching it, somebody making sure that the speaker or the screen's being highlighted, or the robot that's doing demonstrations being highlighted. It gets, from my experience, last week, it was we had Ellie on it, and I don't even know if one person was enough. I think because she was new to it, she didn't really know all the things she had to do to keep it running well. And one of the things, like I said, one of the things you need to do is you might need to monitor for extra hot mics and stuff, because even if it's not in the room, if you have a user and he's got a dog barking, that's going to wipe out the whole audio.
Yep. And so we learned a lot. Yeah, but Buzz, you're spot on. We learned a lot from our first time first new time live streaming in Riverside. And I don't
live
mean to,
stream, yeah.
I don't mean to try to jinx ourselves for Long Beach, but we've been doing hybrid meetings out of that conference room for the better part of 2 years, between management, external campus community, and internal calls and touch points. I think you're going to be surprised just because of the way that room is set up. It was set up from day one to support this, how well it's going to work. But the devil's in the details. When we try to do it live, we'll learn some more. But yeah, you're right. We definitely had some challenges at Riverside. So there's a bunch of things we're going to do differently next time as a result. And then, hopefully next meeting or the meeting after, we'll have everything nailed down.
Correct. The Long Beach one is completely set up specifically for that, to have a group of people in there, and the audio. I mean, the camera that's there picks up audio from all the entire 360, along with the cameras. So everybody, whoever speaks, the camera will focus on that direction, and the mics, so that the entire room is specifically set up for that.
Sounds good.
Oh, that's
You were
great.
talking about having an AV kind of person who's just sort of paying attention, but you might be useful that when you start it to designate somebody who is online and somebody in the room who could just like text back and forth, so that they, those two could manage any issues that come up in the hybrid mode or something like that. You almost need someone on each end, like Alan, kind of like what Alan was saying. So.
Yeah.
Just because there's kind of a diffusion of responsibility that can happen. It's like, well, everyone's online, they'll take care of themselves. But if you say this one person, it's your job to mute things or whatever, like manage the online side of things, that way it'll be, they know it's their job, and it's not necessarily a big job, but just that they know I'm the person that's going to make sure, the audio is clean on the online side, and vice versa. Yeah.
Well, you mean someone at the other end, remote, as well as the person in the room who's the manager of the online. Both.
Yeah, because the person who's remote is going to know, and then if they can share phone numbers, whatever. I mean, it's like you could just do it really quick, set it up. But if they share phone numbers, they can text you and say, "Hey, can you do this or can you do that?"
Yeah.
Just that way, it's not like everybody in the room shouting, "Oh, I can't hear you." It's like there's that one person who's like, "Okay, I'm the guy that's going to tell somebody there or whatever." Not it shouldn't be a big job, but it's just designate those people in advance. Then those people can communicate, on the fly. Yeah.
Of course, different people. Yeah, it's like whoever shows up, it'll be,
You can pick them in the beginning. Yeah, look at who's there and say, okay, you're the guy. Or who wants to do it? Yeah.
Who wants to do it? And I'm gonna pick somebody if you don't volunteer.
Right. And with Alan there, maybe he's the guy. It's like the owner of the meeting, obviously. So whoever it is, hopefully this will be easy. But just knowing in advance that when you start the meeting, you should pick somebody, or just before the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's smart. But yeah, I have trust that the university has done this for quite a long time. These are professionals at remote education. So I'm looking forward to that's going to be cleaner than anything we would come up with on our own. I mean, the equipment and the experience. So I
Yeah, it should be a good experience.
and it tracks people. You said it tracks the speaker as well.
We call it an owl. It's like a little dome kind of camera that has
Yeah.
like multiple cameras, and whatever it hears sound, it focuses on that area.
Yeah, that's cool.
But it at the same time is capturing the entire 360.
I think that, yeah, did Alan bring that to, did you bring that to Riverside, or was that a different one? That was some other one, wasn't it?
Yeah, I've got some reservations of taking equipment that expensive off campus, but the thought
Yeah.
crossed my mind. But I was going to move it from the conference room that we're meeting at in March over to the classroom that we thought we were meeting at over in a different building, because as long as it's on campus, I didn't have a second reservation about doing that. But now that we're meeting in that room, I don't have to steal anything. It's just there.
Yeah, that's cool.
Bought a 360-degree camera, Riverside did, and it's not a good one like you guys have, but it does its job. It is, you know, a whole full 360, but it's just a camera, and the microphones are the standard microphones. So that's what we got. What did you think? Do you think it's worthwhile to keep that? Because I could probably return that if you guys, Buzz, what did you think of that 360-degree microphone that we used? I'm sorry, 360-degree camera.
Well, that
Well,
was your camera.
my feedback on that. Uh-oh, something's feeding back here. I don't know what's going on. The 360, it was interesting at first when the meeting started to kind of see both sides of the room, the back side and the front side. You could see people walking around, stuff like that. But I thought it was to have it on for most of the meeting really didn't make an awful lot of sense, because the bottom line is when Alan was trying to do his stuff, the only time that he really came through was when Ellie took your phone and brought it up to Alan, so you could hear him speak number one, and you could actually focus on his presentation. But because of the interference of the audio from the back computer, could hardly even hear what Alan was presenting. So I missed that whole thing. I hope it got recorded actually to be viewed at another time. But I didn't find the 360 view particularly that useful. It's interesting to do it maybe periodically or at the beginning of the meeting or something to kind of get an idea of who's attending and stuff like that. But the focus on the show and tell people and the presenters, that's the most important part. And the moderators such as yourself, Thomas, actually giving, going through and moderating the group at the beginning. That type of thing is very useful. But in terms of actually being able to see the entire room and everything, I didn't find that particularly useful. It was more interesting when you could focus on the robots moving on the floor and stuff like that, the show and tell aspect of it and the presentational aspect. And again, if a presenter is doing something that is actually shown on a projected screen, you want to be sure to show that projected screen. Obviously, when you're doing a screen share, those of us remotely can see the screen share clearly. But as far as trying to capture the projected screen, if the camera is too far back, you lose the resolution and you really don't get a clear view of anything. So it sounds like the Long Beach conference room is set up for that kind of thing. But from a logistics standpoint, you need to be careful about these different technical issues of that sort.
Yep, understood.
In the future, we'll put the camera right in the front of the room, right by the president's and the vice president's table there. And because that's usually where the other side gets the presentation. I don't know, Alan, what do you think?
Well, a couple of notes since I got my hand slapped for not setting the HDMI to the right input when we left. The HDMI inputs and with the table is set up at the front of the room. And to be honest, when I started talking about our stuff, I flipped my chair around to face the rest of the audience. So it from an officer's perspective and our need to communicate, it may make more sense to put our officer's table in the front facing the opposite way. Maybe we can try that next month.
Yeah, that might make more sense.
That does make a lot of sense. Actually, if since everything tends to be looking toward the front of the room, if you want to do the officer presentations or moderation of the meeting and stuff, it might be best if you guys actually face the audience. That would make the most sense, actually.
Yeah.
You know, another thing, oh, is my thing,
Oh yeah. Good morning.
can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. Well,
Oh,
good
okay.
morning.
Yeah, hi. You know, one thing I noticed when I was watching the last meeting was that they were using YouTube videos as the demo. And all I could see was the little spinning thing in the middle as it's trying to load the stream into one computer and then send it back out. So I think downloading all those demo videos and just having them queued up on the computer would, you know, make it a lot easier to see the video instead of the spinner in the middle of it.
Yep, you're right. When we're planning ahead, that's what Thomas definitely does. I haven't gotten to the habit yet, but you're right. It's a great idea. It saves on some time, especially for a Riverside meetup. The Wi-Fi interconnectivity isn't bad, but sometimes it's not great, and having to wait a couple extra seconds to video spool up is just not the most entertaining way of spending our time.
And as the day goes on, it gets worse because more and more people come into the library and they all start streaming videos. They take all the bandwidth.
I think you could do that at home, you know, if you're gonna watch video in a library. Library kind of is, I don't know, I'm old fashioned, but the books are the attraction to me.
Well,
I tell them that to 10 kids there whose mothers say, you have to have a library.
Well, it is true. Well, there's some people that, you know, rely on the facilities at libraries for video on AV.
yeah, and that's the thing. We have a bunch of, underserved people who that might be their only ability to access the internet and that type of a platform. Although I'm sure most of us have had the uncomfortable experience of walking past someone on a computer streaming video, notice that they're streaming something maybe that they shouldn't be in a library, but
Yeah,
no,
it's
for the
possible.
most part, as long as we have underserved communities and people need access, it's like, I guess this is this is where we're going. Libraries definitely don't feel like they were when I was a kid, that's for sure. Yeah,
Libraries here in Las Vegas are basically maker spaces. They
Interesting.
do free 3D printing for people.
Oh, wow.
And they have classes in robotics, electronics, and how to make hats and socks and sewing and all kinds of things.
Interesting.
That kind of makes sense in some ways because the library is evolving and maker spaces are coming in to being, and they're very expensive though, if the commercial ones. It's almost like the library of the 21st century is a partial maker space. Well, that would be nice anyway.
Well, the thing is that the library also has the books to back up the maker space.
exactly.
Mhm.
Although, yeah, people to train you and all that. I mean, that's the real maker spaces offer a lot for the money.
Well, the libraries here, the maker spaces are funded by some of the big companies here. So they
Oh,
pay for all the teachers and everything else.
oh, okay. It's a full deal then.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, I wish yeah, that's pretty cool.
The only objection I have of it is they're using stuff from education kits made in China and Italy.
We're big fans of Arduino, so don't knock Italy. Actually, we buy the Chinese version of the Italian, the Chinese version of the Arduino. Yeah, a lot of times. So we're violating.
$5 a board.
What's that?
Less than $5 a board, isn't it, Alan?
They were back in the day. I haven't checked recently.
Well, they're up to
I bought
about $20 now.
I bought like several Arduino Megas for like $5 a piece a few years ago. Those are the Megas are,
So
they're pretty
I
cool.
have a brief question about these various boards like Arduino, or Raspberry Pi, the ESP32, stuff like that. Apparently, over the past year or so, excuse me, there's been this problem of actually being able to obtain these things because of scarcity. And it's my understanding that this has been partly a supply chain issue. So my question really centers around, what is the scarcity caused by these days? Is it that the chip manufacturers aren't producing chips for these, or is it that the transportation of these assembled devices are not getting from the manufacturing facilities out to the public, or who knows anything about this that they could shed a little light on?
Well, from what I've been able to see so far, it's actually all of the above. Now,
Yeah.
I have some friends that'll swear that because there's 500 container ships outside the port of LA, that's the reason why you can't buy your Raspberry Pi, or that the dock workers are, they try to make it
Or the
a
truckers.
USA based thing, or the truckers. But here's my litmus test for that. Here's why I am pretty sure that it's global, and here's the data point I have to back that up.
It's definitely cool.
Seed Studio is a Chinese-based supplier of chips and kits and boards and all kinds of fun stuff. They actually are, whether authorized or not, a producer of Raspberry Pis. They manufacture Raspberry Pis themselves.
Mm.
When you go to seedstudio.com, that's seed with 3 E's in case you're curious, and you try to order a Raspberry Pi, they are out of stock. Now, that has nothing to do with US supply chain issues. 100% of their components are produced between Hong Kong and China. If you go to any of the UK distributors for the Raspberry Pi, you will also see that they're out of stock. So the component shortages are, it's been a knock-on effect from looking at it from the 10,000-foot view, from supply chain issues, manufacturing failures, problems with plants, ability to transport components and raw materials from one place to the other, that some things that started 2 years ago are continuing to have a material impact end to end on getting these things manufactured. Because it's, we're starting classes in Riverside, and one of the requests was to do something involving a Raspberry Pi. Yeah, no problem. I've got a couple around. Ross works just fine on one, so we'll do that. And then the moment we committed to it, we started looking around and realized that the only way you can buy a Raspberry Pi is if you pay scalper prices. And although they have gone down a little bit, the 8 gig Raspberry Pi, which is the one I like looking at because 8 gig sounds cool. I believe they're $75 or $85 retail now. I believe the 4 gig ones are supposed to be $55 retail now. Now, a few weeks ago, when you went to buy a Raspberry Pi 4 8 gigabyte on Amazon, scalpers are charging you $270, $280 for it. Now, they've come down in price a bit. When I checked last weekend, they're down to $220, I believe. but oh boy, golly, I can't, that's just insulting. But you're right. It is affecting a bunch of stuff more than just, Xbox Ones and PlayStation 5s and whatnot. There have been problems getting a hold of Teensies, which are my preferred microcontroller for a bunch of different reasons, and everything in between. So the kind of my attempt to answer your question, Buzz, is that it is global. It's between supply chain, logistics, transport. There have been some fab failures over the past 2 years that have a knock-on effect between manufacturing memory, microcontrollers, which in turn has caused a huge backlog. So similar to the issue we have at the LA ports, we're having similar challenges across the planet with things just not being available and not being there when you need them. When we're ordering furniture and materials for our campus work, because as people come back, they want things fixed, they want things updated, which is awesome. We have a lot of business, but we're looking at between a 2 and a 4 month lead time, sometimes as high as 6 months for some things right now. It is nuts. Yeah, and it's everywhere, and it's certainly far more than semiconductors and those types of products. Does anyone else have anything to add? That's my insight.
Also, there are these scalpers are running bots. So when something is already scarce, they run the bots and capture up as much of the product as they can. You can't compete against those guys on bidding because it's microseconds.
On the lower end, I've been ordering ESP 8266s, from AliExpress and had no issues. So I mean, I've been getting 30 or 40 of them at a time, and they come in a week or so. So it's not up high, of course, but some of the stuff is fully available. And the Arduinos, the Nanos and all that, those are pretty available. And on Amazon, the ESP32s seem like about regular pricing to me. Just checking just now.
Does that include the ones with the cameras on them, the little cameras?
I didn't check. Good question.
Because the ESP32s are really nice little modules to work with, and especially with those little cameras that they have on them.
Yeah, I see ones with little ribbon cameras, and they're $10 each. 2 for $20. So that must be, and there's a number of vendors. So I would say in general, yes.
Yeah, I agree with everything Alan's saying. And from Samsung, where I work, that we have a giant semiconductor fab and fabrication plants and the TVs and all that. And the supply chain issues, big shortage of logic chip parts. This says manpower shortages, logistics snarls, and delays at plants due to the power cuts in China. I think a lot of it is China. China is a huge producer of a lot of goods that we consume in the world, the rest of the world. And when COVID hit, it really slowed them down. And to get going again when the demand and the backlog and all that, it's just and the ongoing shortage of labor and all that stuff. It's very difficult to get back up to that, to first of all cover the backlog that was of demand, and then get back up to the production rate that we were running at before that. So you're looking at a couple of years. It's a finely tuned system. Plus there's the whole container. It's cheaper for them to send back empty containers back to China because of the pricing structure. And so things don't get out of the port as you're going out of the United States very well during that time. So there's this whole big pressure on the economics of the container shipping system and the demands, and causing prices to skyrocket for containers, especially for getting things out of the US, but also getting them anywhere. Anyway, that's the little I learned. I've listened to NPR a bit about that.
The circuit board fabrication has been fine. It's just getting the chips to put on the boards. That's where the
Yeah,
out
it's
there.
the chip. Well, that's what this says, the memory chips. Chips are the hard to come by, and so they can't make the board.
Yeah, but like a lot of the Malaysian chip factories, they shut down because a lot of the people just died that worked in those factories.
In Malaysia,
That's where a lot of the chip factories are in Malaysia.
yeah. Yeah, well, that's certainly COVID and definitely had a big impact, or
Mhm.
that's the, anyway.
Well, thanks for addressing my question, guys. I appreciate it because it helps understand what's going on. And I guess the most important thing is if you've got some boards with chips on them that are operational, protect those babies as well as you can. To keep operational is what the bottom line right now is until things get back to semi-normal anyway.
Yeah, dig down in your your bucket of older stuff, and when you need something, because yeah, a lot of us have these older boards that are still usable for something. So
Yeah. Yeah, I just had this analogy that I thought of that I figured I'd share with you. If you want to picture it like traffic on a freeway, or logistically, for a while now, end to end, every one of these pieces of infrastructure, from raw materials to distribution, has been running at capacity. From shipping to chip production to, let's just say, even manufacture, right? So your freeway is at maximum capacity, but everyone's running along great. And so we've had a couple of snags from distribution, ports, etc., where the supply chain was interrupted. So now we have an accident on the freeway. Traffic slowed down or stopped. Now, if you're at capacity before and you had to reduce capacity for various reasons, how do you catch up? And the answer is that you can't. Like any traffic jam, there's a knock-on effect where the traffic behind you slows down and it takes time to speed up. From a capacity standpoint, even if everything's running, you can only operate at capacity. So if there's a deficit of material, something, there's no way to catch up until you increase that capacity. And that takes years to increase that capacity. And then do you even want to, because you're investing in all of this infrastructure to increase the capacity? Will that increased capacity be necessary after you catch up? It's a fascinating problem. I just hope they figure out how to solve it over the next year or two.
Or well, you can also have
analogy.
demand can drop due to frustration or whatever, and then things can catch up as well.
Yeah.
Because people, or inflation and people running out of money can also actually help alleviate this situation. So
Yeah.
not that that's good, but I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah. So so I guess to wrap up our current events, I think Ben and Jim, you've caught us up on Long Beach meeting in person next month. As I had mentioned in the very beginning of the meeting, it's very likely that you will have to present a vaccine card and fill a quick online survey. But we'll have more details available when we send out the invite. These are the rules of the campus, Cal State, and who knows, over the next couple weeks they may relax, but for now, I would expect that those will be requirements. We talked about Riverside, about what worked well and what didn't. Thomas, do you have anything to add about the Riverside meeting before we move on to show and tell? Oh, okay. We'll get back to you. No worries. I see we have a couple of people on the docket that have something to share. Hey, Jim, are you ready? You're up first.
Yeah, I can go first. So I've been working on, I'm gonna try a little live demo here on my other screen, and which is on my cell phone here. So there should be an attendee named Big Orange.
All
Yeah, I
right.
saw him.
Okay. So, oh, thank you. maybe I'll switch to, let me switch the audio over to this other one. Hold on a sec. Okay.
We got
You
an
can-
echo now
Oh, you're an echo.
and feedback.
All right, you hear me?
We have some echo and feedback, but
Yeah, is it gone now?
yeah,
it's
you're good
gone.
now.
Yeah. So I've added, on the advice of several people working with the microphone arrays, I've added this thing called the ReSpeaker V2.0 from, in fact, Seed with 3Es Studio. And it's this nice board with 4 microphones and a digital signal processing chip. Runs off of USB, works under Windows and Linux, and has an output. It has as well an output that you can send. You can plug in to go to speakers, and it has a lot of cool features in it. In fact, well, I should bring that up on my. Let me share the screen here as well.
Jim, what did it cost you?
So it's about 64, I think $64. I meant to bring this up earlier. So here's the, this is the Seed Studio page. Do you see on my other screen? You should see the web page. And so this is what it looks like, $64. You can 3D print your own case. I just 3D printed a case for it. And it's really good because it has various features like far field voice capture, which means it like Alexa's devices have, like Echo devices, beam forming. You can read about these, but it automatically can detect when someone's talking directly at it, and it can sort of focus its algorithms to maximize that direction of audio, incoming audio, and squelch the other directions. It also has noise suppression, and it has acoustic echo cancellation. That's so you could actually play music out of its output while talking to it, and it cancels out the whatever is going through its output from the input. So yeah, you can read more about that, but it's got a lot of good hardware to support what I'm doing, which is I want to do voice recognition, and as best as I can. So let me go back to the. Oh, I'll stop share so I can see what's going on here. Okay. So what I've done just recently is now if you look at this, it also has the NeoPixels, which you can control with their LED 3 RGB colors. But what you can do, what comes right out of the box is it will turn them on. It turns the red one on when it hears something. And if I stop talking, you'll see they go out. And then also you'll see, if you can see it, one of them is brighter than the others, and that's the direction the audio is coming from. So as I go around here, you see how there's one brighter one. And so I can get the angle of the audio, incoming audio. So I stayed up late last night and I hooked that up to Orange's system. So I can give him the come here command, which I've recorded a video for, but it didn't have this feature on that video. It just like turned around until it saw a person. So now I can approximate the angle where the person's voice is coming from, and then quickly turn to that, as opposed to have to go slow and scan the entire, rotation around until I see it. Because you can't go too fast with a AI camera like this, or it will not pick up the, you'll kind of skip over the person rather, because you're going too fast. So let's see if I can get this orange. Or orange, what time is it? I don't know if I have him ready, or should be ready. Oh, and I can now let me start. He's starting him up again.
I'm starting up.
No, you probably could hear that. So yeah.
Hello, my name is Orange. Pleased to be at your service.
Orange, load map.
Okay, I will load map my house.
Also, I'm getting really used to wanting to use
Map and locations are loaded. Mapping is on.
local speech recognition, because it's just faster, and I'm kind of getting tired of the Google Cloud or any cloud speech. So I'm going to try to, this is using the local speech with just the Windows, but I'm going to upgrade that. All right, let's see here. Orange, turn around. Okay. Let me get new. Orange, come here.
Okay. Okay.
All right, so that's that. It looks easy, but that I can do a different angle here for you. Orange, come here.
Okay. Okay.
So, all right, let me switch back. All right. Whoops. All right, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hear you.
Okay, so that any questions about that? So I recommend so far this re-speaker thing is definitely it's definitely a cool device, and I'm still exploring it. It also has an ability to tell you if someone's speaking or if a voice is coming in.
Is there an API for it? Is there an API for that microphone array that you're getting the coordinates, or how are you doing it?
Yeah, so you mean for the audio? You're talking about the microphone array. Well, here I can show a little bit. Okay, can you see this? This
Yes.
is the big orange screen. I'll get rid of those eyes. So, can you see this text?
Yeah, I see it.
Oh, is the text clear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as you can see, it's giving these angles the audio, I mean, this translation is wrong, but if I move around, hello, you'll see that the angle changes. So through the USB, there's a Python code to get the angle, and there's quite a few features actually to that, and you can see that in the web page that I was just showing. Can you see or down? Are you seeing the web page now again?
Yep.
Yep.
So down, or actually, it's not this one. It's the
So Jim, just a brief question.
yeah, go ahead.
I take it that the 4 microphones being active simultaneously, it's determining the differences in amplitude of the sounds that are coming in, and from that it computes essentially the angle at which that board is seeing the sound coming in essentially, and you can take that then and reconcile that angle relative to the front angle of orange itself in order to direct it to move in a particular direction. Is that you have to do some of this for your own coding, but how much of this is actually done with the microphone board itself, as far as the angular determination and all that kind of thing?
Yeah, well, yeah, you're right. I mean, I was just figuring this out last night and getting that, getting that code written. But if you can see this, this is just one of the things it can do. They call it DOA, direction of audio. And it's as easy as connecting to the USB port with this library called USB, and then or module, and then through a small file, a small piece of or module called tuning, you can then get access to all the different variables that are available coming right out of the firmware of the microphone array. And one of them is called direction. So it will give you the direction relative to itself. Then I convert that, it's offset by 90 degrees from orange, and I convert that and then get a delta, because it's a delta that it's like your right and your left. The microphone's attached to orange, so it basically can come up with an angle that says turn to your right or turn to your left or whatever angle, negative 180 to positive 180 degrees. And so that's how that, but yeah, the API is really pretty simple to use. It's all outlined in the wiki.seed studio, and you can git clone you need to git clone the code. And it can also, the other thing, it can do a few other things. There's a lot of variables you can change. You can, of course, record the audio and all that. But anyway, I want to wrap up with, want to show, if there's no other questions about that, the other audio, or I'll take questions at the end here. If you can, let me do a stop share here and then reshare with audio and sound. Or wait a minute, I don't want to do that. Let's see, share, but sound, but not optimize. So this video here, Orange, how are you? This shows some code I wrote for
I'm feeling happy.
adjusting the ambient background threshold. So I'm playing Orange, how are you? I'm playing crowd noise from a YouTube video here in the background. And
I'm feeling happy.
And then I keep asking Orange a question. And
Orange, how are you?
I've structured this code so that it checks the energy
I'm feeling
threshold
happy.
between commands, essentially.
Orange, how are you?
So I have to keep speaking louder over the
I'm feeling
cloud.
happy.
Orange, how are you?
I'm feeling happy.
Now, sorry, but I did not, I should have recorded going the opposite direction because that took some code to do. But as things get quieter, it times, I had to turn on the timeout so that as it's listening for speech, it's hearing like the room is quieter, but its level is still high. You'd have to shout in a quiet room, which doesn't make sense to a person. So it times out while listening for a command, and then it samples the room again, and then it gradually brings it down. So anyway, this is all after my experiences at trying to demo in noisy environments, which is almost everything other than your own home. Anywhere is noisy. Any large room is noisy, and add people, and that's why robots like flop. And you have to use a headset or something to give them commands. Anyway, so that's the audio stuff I've been working on. Any other questions on either of those?
Well, I'd like to actually make a comment and commend you. You are a real pioneer with this thing with Orange, and you've done a marvelous job over time here of adding all these different features to be able to have both the visual and audio system and all this kind of stuff. And it's really quite impressive from my standpoint. I really appreciate what you've done, and it's a real inspiration to the rest of us for incremental development of various kinds of features on a robot. Thanks again.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for those kind words. I appreciate it. I hope this is inspiring, or I hope it's helpful. And I derive a lot of this success from people in the club, and who have point me in the right direction, and provide code even in some cases, and support in that way, and hardware recommendations. So it's ongoing. And that's it for me.
I got a question. For the re-speaker, do you have to have a microcontroller or microcomputer attached to it, or can you just plug it into the input of the audio input for like Windows? Do you need code behind it, or will it work without the code?
Actually, yeah, it works. You plug it in to USB, and it is a microphone array that shows up in the Windows input devices right out of the box, as well as output devices. If you choose to plug in the 3.5 millimeter jack into a amplifier or headphones, technically. So that's, and then yeah, you can do a quick demo with it and turn on music on or play music out of Windows Media Player, and then record your voice. And it has 6 channels that it actually provides, and under channel 0 is the processed channel. You'll hear your voice with the music completely or almost completely like reduced to almost none, and then you can access the other microphones as well. But yeah, it works well. It works with Windows as a device, like almost like it's a consumer device. You can just plug it in, and then yeah, you use the code at your API at your leisure if you want. Which of course I was going to do right off the bat. You know, this is a robot device now.
Jim, another very brief question. Does this device allow you to select which level of audio that you want to actually use? In other words, if you're speaking loudly, can you have this device ignore your speaking and just kind of pick up on another conversation or another speaking elsewhere? Or is it just go with the maximum audio as the primary driving force?
Well, yeah, the mic, I guess I'm not sure. I'll try to figure out how to answer that, but well, yeah, its system, as far as I know, it's picking up the loudest voice, and then it does that. What do you call it? That angle, whatever they call that. Kind of forgetting the term here. That sort of direction of the focusing in on the direction of that that person, or that where it's coming from.
The loudest sound, in other words.
Yeah, it beamforms to where you see that when when you saw it lit up, it lights up the angle it thinks the audio is coming from, and then it does a beamform to that direction. And I'm just learning about beamforming, and there's all these audio terms. It's really interesting stuff. That it then focuses in the kind of in its firmware and its digital signal processor. It focuses on that direction, or that virtually from all the 4 mics. It balances it so that, okay, this is where the talking is coming from, so I'm gonna focus on that area and try to accentuate it, and it ignores the other stuff. So it's the loudest. I think it's the loudest. I haven't tried to test that, but
Jim Pluchonis, is it possible to take those different angles and determine where the sound source is, how far it is away from the robot?
well, I have not. I'm just getting into this, but you get the angle. You can get the angle that it's coming from, but you only get one angle as far as I've found. So I don't know how you would determine. I mean, now you have access to all the other the other 4 microphones. In fact, there's 6 different channels of data. So if you want to do your own processing, you might be able to do something with the amplitudes and figure out distance, but it's not built in, as far as I can tell.
One last question, if I may. You probably covered this in past meetings I didn't attend. What keeps the robot from running over you when you say, come here? What stops it, in other words?
Oh, I have another video for that, but essentially that camera on top that you see, that's a depth camera. It's stereo. It's got a left and right eye, and it can see how far away I am. And so unless I move and try to run into it, it calculates, okay, he's there, and then it comes up to me within like a 1.3 meters, 1.2 meters away. So when you say come here, you better not move forward. Although actually the robot has other subsystems that prevent it from colliding with random objects as well through the LiDAR. So if you do move in its path, it'll stop too. I should test that and make a video, but
Very, very, very clever, very impressive.
no, thank you. Yeah, and all this is off-the-shelf stuff. It really, especially that camera, it's unbelievable. The Oak D, I've been selling it to Thomas, who's thinking about buying one, and I have 3 of them now. It's, I think, the most useful tool for a robot that I've seen since I started. All right. Gonna give some other people some time now. Thank you.
All right,
Thanks, Jim.
looking good. Thanks, Jim. Okay, looks like I'm next. I'll go and I'll share my screen.
You are next.
All right, so one of my childhood dreams was to modify one of my childhood robots to be the robot I thought it always should have been. I've been sitting on it for 30 years now. So I have actually started to cross this off my bucket list by with 3D printing and some other stuff to make what I'm calling Omnibot 2022. So this was a 1980s toy. It didn't sell well. It was too expensive for its time. Back in one of the robotics's, in the ebb and flow of robotics being the center of attention. And so I'm starting with the head and working my way down, using as many of the original body panels as possible. I decided to start with the eyeball mechanism. So the eyes are 2-axis eyes. They can look up and down and left and right. And in order to understand that eye mechanism, which I saw implemented in a few other places, I designed something I just call the eye trainer. So it's the eye mechanism on a base, just to get a feel for how all these components fit together. And through the magic of fusion, you can define the relationship between the components such that when you move the servo, the eye will move up and down. So that makes it pretty easy to figure out range of motion, interference between components. And so I printed everything out and hooked it up to a TNC 4.0, and we'll get to why in a second. And there is a camera in the middle of the eye that's connected over to a Raspberry Pi 4. This is going to be a raw spot. We'll be giving a bunch of lectures over in Riverside this year about ROS 2 and design and everything that's going into designing this robot. The reason that I'm using a TNC 4.0 is first off, there's for people who aren't as familiar with the platform, you see the Raspberry Pi, it's got 40 IO pins. Well, why don't you run everything directly from the Raspberry Pi? And the reason for that is that even though there's 40 digital IO pins and you can use them for a lot of stuff, is it's actually not that great at driving servos, at driving NeoPixel LEDs. It's a computer, so it does computer stuff fantastic. Low level servo and other controls not so great. And under ROS 1, you had this great little library called ROS Serial Arduino, which was a library and a set of headers that you could download into your Arduino environment to write some code that allowed your Arduino to communicate with a computer or a Raspberry Pi. And that's not supported under ROS 2. Under ROS 2, they have a new library called MicroROS, which only runs on 32-bit microcontrollers. So this solution and the robot in general will be using MicroROS and probably a couple of TNCs to facilitate that low-level servo and other communication to make this robot work. Switching back over to the eye trainer. So it's going to have 2 eyes. Each eye is a 2-axis eye. And inside the eye, there's a Raspberry Pi camera. And then there's a 16-element NeoPixel light ring. Let me go ahead and show you that on the sketch. Remember where everything is. So this can, be used for mood, change different colors. Am I angry? Is it red? Am I sad? Is it orange or whatever? There's also a blink animation I've been working on. So you can animate lighting and turning off the lights to imitate a blink, which is working out pretty well. And all of this is controlled through ROS. I don't have a video of that, but each eye presents itself as an eye node with a blink topic, an angles topic to set the angle of the eye. You can set the color of the eye. You can set the brightness of the eye. And so now that this is done, I get to work on the rest of the head. So I'm working on that now. And one of the things I've been working on is the type of mechanism that I want to use for the neck. Now, I initially saw this mechanism from the Parloma guys. I don't know if they're Italy or Portugal for the in-move wrist. And then I saw someone else adapt this mechanism for the in-move neck. So I've taken some time to understand the mechanism and reproduce it at a scale and in a way that would work for the Omnibot head. And I think I've got a pretty good design. So I'll finish fleshing out the rest of the components and printing them out this weekend. It's I'm using, just like with the eye, I'm using more hardware this time. I'm using bearings for bearing surfaces, so a little bit more robust. These are M5s. I want a little bit more surface area. And so far, it looks like everything's going to fit. If I switch view here, just to let's do it this way. If I stack the components vertically, it looks like I have more than enough room for when I get around to the arm mechanism. I'm not sure if I want to do a 2 or a 3 axis shoulder yet. But yeah, everything should fit. It looks like it has about 30 or 45 degrees of freedom in all 3 directions, pitch, roll, and yaw. Go ahead and switch this back to 100%. So hopefully by the next Riverside meeting, I'll have maybe the head platform or the head and the neck platform designed and printed out. And so far, everything just works. Getting Micro ROS to work was a bit of a pain. The ROS serial Arduino package was a lot more Arduino friendly. It used the Arduino idioms. So if you're used to those objects and how they work, it was an easier fit. Micro ROS doesn't do any of that. It's full C++ with templates and pointers and all this fun stuff. And it's not super well documented, but the maintainer more or less answers questions without being too offended by them. But yeah, so that's where I'm at right now. Hopefully next month I'll have the neck and the head platform with both eyes and both ears animated, because, you know, why not? Lots of servos in the head. Jim, I'm actually going to look into that re-speaker array. Having reliable audio input and noise cancellation is kind of the holy grail of mobile robots. Anyone who has mounted a microphone to a mobile robot and then been dismayed at how much noise from the motors and the servos show up and make it impossible to hear will know that it's a tough nut to crack. I've been super jealous about the Alexa and the other like pedestal type things where they have no motors in them, but they're very good at understanding you in a room with echo and stuff. So I'm going to see how I can integrate that. The end goal for this is I think I want to put an NVIDIA Orin or 2 in there to do as much processing on board as I can. But then even if I can't, I can use the Raspberry Pi to facilitate communication with another computer in my home, so that all the heavy lifting is maybe done on my desktop, and then this becomes an intelligent peripheral. We'll see what direction the project takes us as we move on.
So, Alan, with all of this many degrees of freedom of movement with eyes, neck, ears, all of that kind of stuff, what kind of approach are you using algorithmically in order to choreograph, let's say, how you're going to coordinate all these different movements simultaneously? What kind of thought have you given to that?
Yep. So good question. I'm not an animation expert, but I have done some work in the past. With that, my expectation is that it's going to be a combination of a catalog of predefined movements. You know, perhaps there is a position that I define for angry, happy, sad, and then those positions can be blended into other animation or an animation controller to kind of trigger those things. The eyes can there's a full featured transform framework in ROS 2 that if you know where an item of interest is in 3D space, so like if you're using a depth camera and you're using a YOLO type object classifier, you'd be able to identify and localize an object of interest, like say a person or a book or a phone, in 3D space. And then it's a relatively, I say relatively because there's still math involved, matter of figuring out the relative positions of the torso and the head and the eyes to be able to focus and track that in 3D space. It's actually roughly similar to a demo that, will be the demo that Jim gave over in Riverside, where Orange is able to identify you as a person, and then the camera will follow you as you move about, because the Yocti has some image classification software which provides a bounding box, and using that and some filtering and some other magic, it's a very convincing effect. And it's actually it put a smile on my face to like watch this machine, this Orange, this Jim's child, in matter of speaking, follow him as he was kind of talking and walking around the room.
So do you have thoughts about adding some kind of database of mapping various kinds of emotion to the mechanism of the animation of the various independent channels, if you will, for eyes and neck and all this kind of stuff? In other words, to coordinate movements with an emotional database that could be triggered by either voice interaction with the robot or something like that, in order to have a more natural kind of interactive dialogue with this machine? Or
Yep. Hey, I apologize for the interruption. I'm going to put myself on mute. Someone's at my front door. I'll be back in just a moment. I think I know who it is. I'll be right back.
Okay, thank
Sorry.
you.
Yeah, he seems to be doing a lot of cool mechanical design as well, and many degrees of freedom. Now that neck looks impressive.
Yeah, I saw it in person. He brings it into the office every time he makes a new iteration of it. He'll try it out and bring it into the office, and it's really nice. Like especially the eyes, I got to play with it. The actual eye mechanism, the way it works it's really nice.
Yeah, I love how it went from virtual, world to real world, and the movement is captured with Fusion 360, the whole.
Yeah.
I haven't used 360 in that way yet with the joints, so I look forward to designing something in the future like that. That's really a great way to visualize before you commit to physical, right?
Well, Alan just seems very facile with the Fusion 360. He really knows how to drive that software and be able to characterize things relative to his vision, and then manipulate and then get down to the nitty-gritty details of manufacturing his parts. That is just a terrific skill to have, actually.
Oh yeah, he's back now.
Oh yeah. Thanks for that. So to just kind of wrap up that, that discussion about, emotion and movement, I'm gonna give you guys a little spiel and pitch. Let me stop and start share so I can share video. Just a moment. Or share video more reliably. Don't worry about sound on that.
Done a lot of good work there, Alan.
Oh, thank you. And this is part of the talk that I gave back in the before times when we would attend like maker fairs and stuff, is that in InMove's case, InMove is relatively human. Depending on where you stand, it's either on one side or the other of the uncanny valley. But at the end of the day, it's a machine, it's a device. It's motors and gears and 3D printed plastic parts. And one of the challenges is, how do you bridge that gap? How do you get your subconscious, your lizard brain, or your monkey brain, depending on how you want to look at it, to look past the nuts and the bolts, and to be able to empathize, and to be able to see it as not necessarily maybe in a living or a breathing thing. Those terms don't really apply, but as something that you can interact with, less like a toaster, more like, a companion or what have you. And one of the things that I learned with InMove, and I'm looking forward to applying with the Omnibot project, is that it's not just the fact that it can move. We have lots of things that can move. There's a turntable in my microwave that can move. You won't find me, having well, okay, I do talk to machines, but is how you approach movement goes a long way towards bridging that gap, whether you have something more anthropomorphic like InMove, or something more like the Omnibot. And in this demo, which I would do in maker fairs, by scripting and writing algorithms that approach movement in a whole body fashion, that attempt to, and I know the hands are wrong on this, the later one worked better, is that if you script the movements to emulate the way a biological system approaches movement, which is, you can look around with a pan tilt camera and that's 2 motors in the neck, but you would never mistake that for being alive. But when a person looks around, they engage the whole body. There's a little bit of a lean, a little bit of a nudge, the head moves, the eye moves.
Partial twists.
Is that, there's a bunch of things that go into that. And when you put it all together, when you get it right, when you approach the way a biological system approaches movement, your subconscious, your lizard brain loosens up a little bit, and you start to feel like this is something more than a machine. And this is something I'm really looking forward to doing on the Omnibot project. So that's why I'm like, oh, it's got to have eyes that move. It's got to have ears that move. It needs to have a 3-axis head so it can tilt from side to side. And I feel strongly that when we put all these things together, you're going to have a cute little bot that it feels more comfortable talking to without feeling weird. So anyways, so that's my spiel on movement and emotion and scripting and how all that fits together.
Yeah, it looks really, that's really great. I was going to ask you, have you thought about, or have you ever done any motion capture of your own body, or found it on the internet or something, and use that to drive gray? Because to me, that's, rather than be an artist and try to, learn that very difficult skill of animation, which I saw the people that did that in the movie industry or in the animation business. The easy thing for an engineer is to grab motion capture, or to capture themselves with the ping pong balls. And I think nowadays you can probably set that up at home without that much cost. And then obviously there may be like what do you call it? Stock footage or stock captures that are available. That would be a good business right there. Stock motion capture. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah,
Somebody's doing that already.
Yeah, it's one of the things that, and I never got around to doing this, and I don't know if I ever will, was when I had InMove built, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. I still think it's awesome. But it should hand out candy and set it up for Halloween. And the thought had crossed my mind of setting up like a Walder or telematics, like a suit type thing, but with the Connect and the Connect 2, and I imagine with the Intel RealSense, rest in peace, and their successors, that they had skeleton tracking software, motion tracking software with skeleton approximation. And so one of the things that I suspect would be possible, but I probably won't get around to, is to buy a second camera, set it up facing me, and then have the robot mimic my head and arm movements, and then maybe have a switch to open and close the hand.
There is some software out there that does that already, so you might be able to adapt it.
The Oak D does that too.
Good.
I'm going to be doing that with the Oak D and make Orange. It doesn't have arms, but it'll like maybe mimic your dance. You know, if you do something, if you move your body in a certain way, it'll try to move its body in the same way, you know, but that's available with these, with the OAK-D and the human pose neural network model.
Yeah, like I say, if I had all the stuff that he had there with Gray, I could do the animation and make it look very, very, very lifelike.
Well, that's you guys should get together. And I mean,
Well, that's what I'm good at.
that, you know, we have some great animate. Well, if I ever have a humanoid robot, I'll be calling you.
No problem.
Yep. And Jim, so by the end of this, our robots might be closer to cousins because I want to put an OAK-D camera in it. I'm going to put one in the chest, and I'm trying to find a spot to fit that respeaker. So you've definitely inspired me. You're doing some stuff.
Oh yeah,
that
what
I
you
didn't
got
even realize
going
was
there,
possible.
Jim, is really, really exceptionally cool. I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, Al.
No, yeah, you're good.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the audio part has been bugging me, and it's kind of, you know, you ignore it for a while, and then you're like, well, I better not ignore it anymore.
Finding that audio module is really great there. It's solves a lot of problems about where the sound's coming from and all that stuff.
Yeah,
There's so many advances in robotics as I've seen with you, Jim, and your orange since Leaf. Leaf was the last greatest robot in the club, and you now take the lead on that. You have the mantle of the most sophisticated robot in the club, the two clubs.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, and I listen a lot to the Homebrew Robotics, mailing list, and several people are using this re-speaker. So I mean, a lot of these, and then you remember Brian Erickson, he and Justin, they bought a speaker array earlier last year. It's a different model, but that got me thinking about, they were like, oh, we really think speaker arrays are the way to go. And it's like, oh gosh, yeah, that's how all the Alexa type home assistants work. So anyway.
Alan, this is Ross with two S's up here. Speaking of HBRC, hey, following up on your the use of micro ROS, I guess this last week's discourse.ros.org had an entry for a neat little robot. It uses micro ROS, and actually it was the designer who's starting into a project that looks interesting, and it does use the micro ROS, and there's a bit, if you follow through, there's a GitHub that's got a tutorial associated with it. Actually, it's basically the same stuff that's already online in the ROS2 documentation. But anyway, you might want to follow. But the robot is called Rosmo, ROSMO, and it's got a GitHub, I think, called that.
Oh, was this at the last ROS meeting they talked about it?
No. This what I'm referring to is showed up as an entry in the weekly ROS, in the weekly discourse.ros.org weekly newsletter. It's the one from the Open Robotics Group. Yeah, there it is. Right.
Okay, so there's a that seems like okay. I wasn't familiar with that one. Thank you.
That's a good little mailing list to be on.
For the mailing list, yeah.
For just totally only exclusively ROS things. But it's good for that.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, that's a great thing, Alan. I guess I've got a project way earlier than where you are now that I hope to implement with the micro ROS with an ESP32. I have that, but that's only the tip of the putting your toe in the ocean.
Yeah, I mean, really, aside from being more comfortable with C++ than I am, is that the biggest hang up was if you want to use any complex messages, if you want to pass a single float or a single int or anything in between, a signed and unsigned int8, Yeah, no problem. You can use the example out of the box, copy and paste, and you can get it working. There are some challenges with complex messages that are not yet well documented. I keep meaning to submit a pull request with an example. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. So when you dig into it, and I'm actually using Micro ROS Arduino under Visual Studio Code and Platform IO, just to throw a little bit of word salad at you. It is an amazing combination, but it took me a full weekend of digging around to understand how to pass. I'm just doing multi-arrays, but anything complex, anything that has a header and a structure, you have to pre-allocate the memory on the microcontroller side, and that is something that was not intuitive to me at all. That was my biggest hang up.
The
Oh,
bleeding
really?
edge, Alan. Good. Great thing.
Same? Is that what you said?
Yeah, you've taken the robot. Well, I'm sorry, very far there, Jim. That's really cool. Makes the Newton robot I worked with back in the 70s look sick, actually.
Yeah.
That was a commercial robot that was basically PC on wheels, but didn't have any of the recognition. It had very good voice recognition. You talk to it through a wireless microphone, and it had a TI speech synthesis and voice recognition board. You could tell it to do stuff, but you've got this thing navigating around your house, and you're talking to it it's almost like a person now. So, or something that you can command to do simple tasks and stuff.
Right, yeah. A companion or a servant, or I don't know, eventually maybe some kind of intelligence. If Dr. Bruce gets me to try to implement behaviors and a little bit of unpredictability.
Well,
personality.
I would like to try to make my own version of that if it's something I want to talk to you about offline at some point.
I should, it's maybe time to start or to put up an instructable or something with a lot of more details on about it. Seems that's
most all the parts you have there are standard off the shelf stuff. So.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are getting a little harder to find, but
supply chain problem.
Yeah, that plus old, some of the, but age, but anyway.
Yeah, can you put a link to that your that microphone board so I can look at them more detail? Might even get one.
I'm sorry, there's Alan posted one, but that's a different one, I think.
Yeah, can you post the one you're using, the Respeak you're using?
I'll post it now. I'll post this to everyone here. This is the sell page. That's the page. There's one page for actually ordering it from seed, and then there's the this other page, which is the wiki. So if you generally want to read the marketing page, and then as an engineer, you read the wiki and see how easy it is to actually integrate into your project. And then if you like both, then you think about buying it.
So this would be, Jim, a good project for a series of articles in Servo magazine or one of those kinds of things. Sort of like what Thomas is doing with his Simone project.
Yeah, those are really, I mean, I'm starting to really love Servo. I never really paid attention to it before Thomas kind of started getting involved. And I think it's a really good magazine.
Yeah, it's like same format, like nuts and bolts and stuff. It's just more robot oriented.
Nuts and bolts.
Nuts and bolts.
Hmm?
It's the same people, same company.
Oh, okay.
Same people.
Question for Alan.
Yeah.
By the time you think that your robot will be more or less finished, how many microcontrollers do you think you'll be managing with the, I mean, how do you intend to do that?
So there's two general paths. For basic peripheral control, I'm expecting probably 3 Teensy 4.0s on a Raspberry Pi to get the party started. And from that point, I can use the entire robot as an intelligent peripheral with all of the computing heavy lifting on my desktop PC. But there's this really, really cool single board computer called Orin that NVIDIA is coming out with this year. It's intended for automotive autonomous driving, and they're not cheap. We're expecting it to be about probably $800. Who knows now? But it has an impressive amount of computing power, and it might allow me to keep everything on board. Within power envelope, there is a lot of space on that 80s robot. So if I wanted to have all the brains on board type of an approach within Orin or two, I might be able to do that. And so I think those are my two general options: is intelligent peripheral with my desktop computer, or enough brains on board to do object classification, speech recognition, all of that stuff on board. So in that case, that would be 1 or 2 Orins. And then the 3 Teensy microcontrollers should be enough to get the job done.
So all this heavy lifting is done on your main computer there in the house?
It can be, yeah. So
Well,
Ross
what's stopping you from putting the computer on the robot? They have boards that shrink the computer size down quite small.
Yep, they do. And so like the Orin platform from NVIDIA would be a great option for that. It's they're very power efficient, and they have a lot of computing power. It would just be, spending that extra money to put the computers on board. Ross is inherently multi-machine aware. So as long as you're on the same network and use the same Ross graph ID, I don't remember what they call it. You can plug all these computers in. They will automatically see each other and communicate and pass messages. But yeah, Tim, you're right. There's enough room to put the computing on board. It's just a matter of determining if I can get enough computing power to make it worthwhile, and then spending the money to put it in there.
All right.
Yeah.
As compared to passing messages back and forth between the robot and a remote computer.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that your data, your packet structure's got to be organized more for higher level functions rather than lower level control functions. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. In any solution, whether it's ROS or non-ROS, you want to take into account the speed of the interconnect or the fabric that connects these components together, right? So having 2 computers sitting next to each other with a crossover 10 gigabit network card means that you have a certain amount of bandwidth and speed. Wi-Fi is getting faster, but it's still slower than a connect cable, and everything in between. So your solution will want to take that into account. Back in not robotics related, but back in the day when I worked for Clear Channel, they had a computer system for managing their trouble tickets, and they came out with a new module that did some kind of monitoring. And when they came out with it, I put it on a separate box in the server room. I didn't install the program on the same computer that the other software was. And I guess when they came up with this module and they intended to roll it out, they had expected that everyone would put it on the same box. So there was no networking or cost to communicate because both programs were on the same box and they'd communicate directly. Well, I put this program on another box that was connected over very fast, Ethernet and switches. But because the communication wasn't instantaneous and they didn't do any communication optimizations, it ended up like asking for 1 million records over the network one at a time. And it just didn't work. So a trouble ticket and a little bit of debugging logs later, what do you know? A new version came out that did and optimization that didn't ask for all million records individually, and it worked just fine. But those are a lot of the considerations, is that, how many, what's your frame rate for your camera? Are you processing the camera image locally or remotely? How many updates per second? When you're coming up with your solution, you take all those things into account, and then you optimize for what you have.
Alan,
Yeah, it's a very good consideration.
just a thought that comes to mind from a physical size standpoint. What about having multiple Raspberry Pis on a backplane of some sort in order to accommodate these multiple desktop computer things, and just kind of cram it into a small space, because the Raspberry Pis aren't that large, really.
Yep. And in my opinion, it's always the right tool for the job. Now, it's all, if you have a hammer, it's kind of fun to make everything into a nail. But the Raspberry Pi fits a very specific niche in this, progression of, Arduino, 32-bit, Raspberry Pi, full computer, supercomputer, and, Cray exaflop computing cluster. In the
Quantum.
solution where you're setting up the Omnibot to be an intelligent peripheral, you need just enough computing horsepower to accept messages from your other computer, to disperse them to microcontrollers and collect data from the microcontrollers and then give them back. And to be honest, even a Raspberry Pi 3B is more than enough horsepower to be able to facilitate that communication over the network. We're actually, sorry.
Can an ES32 be used for ROS then, in conjunction with the Raspberry Pi?
Yeah,
because they're very
the way that the hardware software stack works on that is that 64-bit Intel, AMD and Intel, or ARM64 processor platforms are considered a tier 1 platform, meaning their ROS2 is pretty much guaranteed to work. And if you have any problems, there's a fighting chance you'll be able to get some help from the message boards. So knowing that you have to have a 64-bit ARM processor, that they standardized on Ubuntu 2004 as the operating system, that operating system can be installed on any Raspberry Pi as far back as the 3B. So the 3B, the 3B Plus, and the 4B, and the A400, even the keyboard one, all support the right version of Ubuntu, which will support ROS2 as a tier 1 platform. Does that kind of answer your question, or did I miss?
Kind of. So in other words, as you say, you want the right tool for the right job, and you want to integrate the right set of tools in an overall system standpoint. Mm-hmm. So the physical size of these little ESP32 from a physical standpoint are small enough that if they were operating other servos or peripherals and were coordinated by an overall Raspberry Pi, let's say, that would be kind of a system concept that might be viable for a robot like your Omnibot or some other system similar to that.
Oh, sure. And there are lots of examples of, cursor.
What is that?
Of clustering Raspberry Pis. Most of them are proof of concept, or why because I can. But any problem space that you're attempting to solve where you can solve that with one or more, Raspberry Pis that communicate over, like, let's say the Raspberry Pi 4 supports gigabit Ethernet, so you could put it on a gigabit Ethernet backplane, a switch of 4 or 8. And there are people solving, real problems in that type of a setup. It's just that when you compare the throughput of a Pi cluster versus even a moderately spec'd Intel PC, the Intel PC still wins. But it's a fun thing to set up. A lot of people do it to learn more about clustering technologies, and that trade-off that Plutonus had hinted at about processing locally versus distributed processing and the performance penalty for communicating over, Ethernet or Mellanox or InfiniBand or, even Wi-Fi. There are certainly going to be problem spaces that are served well by multiple Pis sharing a common internet switch.
Hey, Alan, you're showing you're showing Rosmo on your
Oh, wait,
share.
sorry. Hold on. Did I click on the
Are you
wrong
trying to
screen?
share some Raspberry Pi thing or?
There we go. Just doing a quick search on Raspberry Pi cluster. There are people out there that are doing it. There's Kubernetes, there's software frameworks that support Raspberry Pi out of the box. And they're a fun thing to do. You can even go on Etsy and even Amazon and buy plexiglass kits that are designed to hold multiple. But yeah, to answer your question, performance-wise, Buzz, it's moderately spec'd Intel PC. Even in a similar power envelope, seems to outperform a cluster of Pis. But I wouldn't be surprised if there was a problem out there that could be solved adequately.
I'm actually thinking of more of a cluster of the ESP32s being controlled by one Raspberry Pi, essentially as the central organizer. But in a distributed way, you have all these little ESP32s doing their local processing, essentially. So it's more a backplane of a bunch of ESP32s, all coordinated by one larger capability processor, such as a Raspberry Pi, for instance.
Yeah, it would be a fun thing to try out, with a spare Pi and a couple of ESPs, just to see what the solution looked like and what types of problems you'd be able to solve.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Alan, for addressing it.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right. Sorry, that went a little bit long. The next one on our list is Thomas. You wanted to show us GPT-3?
Hello, I've been working on pan and tilt for my newest robot. I'll show you that in a minute. And I never stop doing, just like the rest of you. Okay, so Alan's been working with GPT-6, right, Alan?
Yeah, GPT-6B.
6B. So a long time ago, well, I've been working with the ARC Easy Robot system, and a long time ago, they told me, oh, we're going to have GPT-3 on board. Well, we waited and we waited and we waited, and they brought it up and they didn't enable it. So around about a month ago, I said to them, what happened? You said it'd be a little bit of time. It's been a year. All of a sudden, bam, he put it up. He enabled the skill. And so recently I've been fooling around with that new skill, and it is GPT-3, general pre-trained something. What's the third fourth letter in the algorithm? Never mind. Anyway, it works fairly well, and it doesn't have the problem Alan had. It doesn't try to kill you. It doesn't threaten you. And if you try to program it to threaten you or kill people, et cetera, because, these things are grabbing, terabytes of scripted conversations off the internet and making words and ideas out of them and blending them to what you're saying and trying to pull up something logical. It blocks it. There's a filter on it. And I keep running head first into that filter, because as soon as it starts going that way, it filters and says, I have no answer for that. And you'll see in this demo, if I hit one of those walls, we'll get that back. I have no answer for that. Now, I have an answer for that, that problem, and I have not implemented that yet. Maybe next month I'll have that implemented. It's just my own filtering on top of their filtering to reset it back to where it can communicate again. All that said and done, here's the live. This is live, and GPT-3 is run through a service. I don't have it locally. Alan had GPT-6 6B local, if I'm correct. So it worked at home. It might still work at home. Let me share my screen.
Hey, where'd you get your T-shirt there, Thomas?
Amazon.com.
Okay.
See, I build robots. That's my superpower.
That's a good spirit.
No, right now I am a robot, so.
Yeah, I saw that. All right, we're going to share my screen, right? And optimize, I don't know, share sound. It's not a video clip, so, but there is audio. I don't know, we'll try the optimize too. We'll see how it comes through. It's got audio, IO, which is sort of part and parcel to Easy Robots. It's because it's all services. Well, the audio it's Bing speech, so it works fairly well, especially if you have a good microphone. I've been using this microphone lately, and although I wouldn't put this on a robot, it's not a bad microphone.
That's a studio mic, huh?
That's a studio mic, but I'm envious of that beaming mic. Beam mic, is that what they call them? That you have, Jim?
Mic array. Yeah, the array.
Microphone array.
Microphone array.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah, that'll
jealous.
be really fun to work with, I think.
Okay, here
Yeah,
we go. Share. Tell me when you can see my screen.
Yep.
Oh, there it is.
So this is the
Arc.
Easy Robot desktop. This is the interface. I've showed this before. A lot of you non-programmers out there who want to do robotics, or beginning programmers, there's a few of you out there, I know that. The Easy Robot Arc, while a little bit expensive, is probably a good way to start if you want to integrate voice interaction and controlling a whole bunch of features without actually doing much coding. Now you have the opportunity to code, but you don't have to do as much. Okay, so I have Bing speech recognition running. I have it on manual. You can have it on automatic, so it listens for your voice continuously, which can be a problem at times. So let's see what happens. Hello there. Okay, it's not speaking.
I have no response for that.
Yes, it replied. Did you hear that?
Affirmative.
Yeah.
How are you?
I am doing great.
What's your name?
My name is Orange. Easy to remember, right?
I have no response for that.
Tell me a story.
I have no response for that.
Okay, it's gotten into one of those modes. I'm gonna reset it. Tell me a story.
I have no response for that.
What time is it?
I have no response for that.
Not enough noise in the background.
Okay, everybody's got to shut off their microphones because it's going to hear you as well as me. Okay, we're going to reset this. You can't see this, it's on the other screen.
It's funny, Orange heard you and said, my name is Orange.
I know.
I don't know if you heard that. It was.
I did.
Oh, the volume's supposed to be low.
Okay, so this is how it's seeded, and this is how the text is fed back to it. It reads this whole thing every time. So we're just gonna delete the other stuff. Are you a robot?
Yes, I am a robot.
What kind of robot are you?
I have no response for that.
Where are you?
I have no response for that.
Where are you?
I have no response for that.
How are you?
I have no response for that.
All right, well, this thing is really buggy, and we're just going to end off here and say that sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I'm going to, would anybody would like to try feeding some audio into it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'll give it to you. When you see me click to start recording, I'll be quiet, and as soon as you're quiet, I'll stop the recording. All right?
Give me a second. Let me think.
Think of a question to ask it.
Okay. What is your favorite area to study?
I have no response for that.
Just not cooperating today. It was better the last time. He made an update between then and now. That may be part of the problem.
What can we, it should answer something.
It should. What's the weather like?
I have no response for that.
Right.
Seems like it needs to be reset, but you already did that, didn't you?
Well, we said it again.
So Thomas, what would this GPT actually tend to respond to these different questions? What would be some of the sample answers that it would give if it weren't, I have no response to that?
Well, the bottom line is we don't know, because the data set it's trained on is so large and so interconnected that it's a roll of the dice or what it's going to pick at any given time. And you can't seed it, you can't customize it. There's almost, I mean, yeah, you can seed it to some degree, but there's almost no way to get it to be predictable. In a lot of ways, it's when the filter is not off, it does come back at you very human-like. But as they used to say, and they probably still say, garbage in, garbage out. A chatbot is more predictable. You can develop a personality that's coherent, whereas this thing, again, it's a roll of the dice. What responses you get back, and Alan probably can corroborate that with me.
So Thomas, one other question about this thing. You mentioned that this is a skill on ARC that was added. So is this something that has to go remotely through ARC's servers in order to get that response? Or is this something that's resident on your system that's currently buggy somehow?
This is resident on ARC servers, and if not the people who did the GPT implementations. I don't know the exact back end, but it's not on my machine. That's all I know. All right, have a nice day.
I have no response for that.
No, you don't, do you? Well, that was.
Ask it if it likes humans or something.
Do you like humans?
I have no response for that.
This is just ridiculous. Let me do a little bit. Let me play a little here. Edit. We're gonna get rid of all of this.
It seems like it's disabled. It's not, yeah, something's really off.
It's yeah. He may have clamped it down too hard.
It is clamped. That's part of the,
Yeah, he's probably going to have to retrain it with this new software add-on.
There is no training.
no, I meant like just maybe you have to shut down everything. If you were just using it like early yesterday and it was working.
They upgraded it since I used it last.
Oh,
It may be a bug. I mean, his QA is just probably him and his secretary. I don't know.
You know, somebody mentioned the business about it working when you were working with it yesterday. Maybe it's because of the bandwidth of your internet connection.
no, I was just asking him if he used it yesterday, but it's been,
It shouldn't be the bandwidth, guys, because it's just sending text streams across. Bing is separate from the chatbot. So it's just a string of text. It's, you know, those 20 or 30 characters. It should not have any bandwidth problem. We'll try one more. Oh, I just killed Bing here. You see that? I hit stop in the middle of sending and something. It's dead. It crashed. Anyway, so that's the demonstration on that. I got some other quick things to show you. Like Tim's early incarnation of the Vision robot. I have the later incarnation of the Vision robot that I'm building as a replica. And I just bought a mask. It looks nothing like Tim's mask. It looks more like the movie. Oh, I got to take the screen sharing now.
Well, I just ordered that mask. I'll have it soon.
Good. So this is the new mask I have here. It's very screen accurate, and it even has a little gem on top of it. Well, it's plastic, but it looks real enough, and it's got eyeballs, which is kind of weird for a mask because you don't expect a mask to have eyeballs, but this one does.
Well, I think that it was made to be a display thing, never to be worn by a person.
And it's sold as a mask, but I suppose you could cut out around the eyes or cut slits under the eyes, but this will go on top of it. And I've been working while everyone was talking, I've been working on my pan and tilt here. Mechanism for his head. That'll pan and tilt the head eventually. I was using the Dynamixel servos, but I ran out of brackets. I don't have a whole set of brackets for that. I have this Maker Beams. These are neat. Anybody ever use Maker Beams? They are just wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
They're pricey, but everything goes together well, and it all works.
Maker Beams, yeah.
Maker Beam products.
You can buy them in all sizes, right? And
they sell two sizes generally: the 10 millimeter wide and the 15. And it's great. I for my large robots, I make bones.
Yeah.
That's about it for me. That's all I got.
Wait, what are those called again? Those beams?
Maker Beam. Here.
Maker Beam. All right.
Yeah, look, there we go. Focus.
I never bought any, but it sounds good.
We might want to put their link up on the chat there, Thomas.
They're available at Amazon is where I usually get them. So if there's any returns, it's an easy return.
Ah, that's a good point. They have their own webpage.
It is in Europe somewhere, and you don't want to be ordering from Europe. You'll get maybe England, I think it is. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I see. It looks like it's in pounds, but you can browse the makerbeam.com just to see what they offer. Oops.
Amazon carries 90% of their products, so you can get most of what you need. on Amazon here.
Just to see pictures of all the types of things they have. Their
Yeah, those are
website.
cool. I've used a larger version of that, several projects,
Oh,
companies.
don't the first robotics kids use these, I think, or one of the levels of first robotics might, or the high school one, I think. I remember seeing these. They have that distinctive like cross section with the arrows and arrows to each corner of the square kind of thing.
Yep, that's right. Let's see. Can I get a link here? Let's see if I can get a link for it.
There's probably a lot of existing robots you can build that are that have a make beam profile or are instructions, right? Even
Try this link. See if that gets you there. Sometimes when you copy over a web browser, it doesn't quite get you there.
Oh, Thomas, it looks like that was a direct message. Do you want me to copy and paste that into the general chat?
Oh, sorry, Alan. Yeah, please.
No problem.
It happens sometimes.
Yeah, Jim, when you get some time, give me a call. I'd like to talk to you about technology. You have an
sure.
orange there.
Yeah, I have so much information that I think I need to dump it out on an Instructable or something.
Well, I mean, you took in that basic frame and really made it set up a dance, basically.
Made it, yeah.
But anyway, I want to talk to you about it more detail. So when you get to time this next week sometime, give me a call.
All right.
Beam, they sell kits like this, and it's nice to get the kit because then you get a little bit of everything, and then you figure out what.
Yeah, that's not too bad. I may buy one of those on my next paycheck.
That's a great deal.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've worked on some larger versions of the same thing to build some heavy duty industrial stuff, but this is great for what we do.
A lot of pieces there.
Yeah, a lot of sizes and stuff. Because it got that I-beam construction, just slide the screws in there and tighten down, you know.
There's their 10 by 10, and then there's the 15 by 10. 15 is a little bit more money, and I have both sets.
Sounds like they're well worth the money from what I can see.
Yeah, it makes prototyping really fast because you know otherwise you're drilling and cutting or printing, and it's time to drill. And
I guess you have to get used to how to construct or how to you use them to make what you want, and then put motors on it and all that. It probably takes a
Yeah, they
little
show that
learning.
example here. He's got their solenoids and stuff.
It's kind of Legos for adults. I mean, in a sense, like a Lego Mindstorm, you know, for
more industrial version, I think.
For rich people.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you can see right here where they attach the motors to the upright I-beams that are on a cross beam that are attached to this larger cross beam that are on this base cross.
Yeah, I guess you start getting the
like an
pattern,
erector set.
It's like a erector set, which and then
Industrial
even
version of an erector set. And
they got a perf board there, and they just you figure out how to mount a perf board using the screw.
Somebody probably built that for whatever they're controlling. They got the Arduino hooked into
Yeah,
that.
there's the Arduino.
But they've got an Arduino. Yeah, Arduinos have, you know, screw. Yeah, so that the size of the screws and the and everything are compatible, or pretty easy to use. That go right into that slot in the middle of it, running that channel, so you can mount just about anything. It seems like that's really great.
Looks really cool.
There's a guy in Italy that makes a pick and place machine that uses that size. I mean, I think of it as being miniature T-slot material. I mean, I've used T-slot.
Oh, there's one company.
Yeah.
One company that makes animatronic figure stuff with this stuff. You customize it any way you want. But there's a larger version of that. So it allows you to make a animatronic frame really quickly because you can just take things apart, put things together, and the more heavy duty version of this I-beam technology.
Yeah, like I said, they also have
Put it on my wish list.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably get one of those here.
Put it on my wish list here.
Oh, yeah.
and these things come as long as, what is it, 300 centimeters or something?
Well, I've got that
That's
I-beam
already in
technology
my
in my
wish
3D printer, yeah.
I'm not good with my,
Uh-oh, it's already in my wish list. That means I probably should get it by.
and there's all sorts of add-ons from other companies you can use to go along with these. They're kind of limited, the company's kind of limited, and there's one of their competitors, Ivern Tech.
Hmm.
But they're not any cheaper. And you see, this thing's 700 millimeters. That's almost, what, a yard long,
Yeah,
2.5 feet long that these things are. So they come in pretty large pieces if you need it that big.
might be fun to try to use this as underskeleton for an animatronic figure or something.
Might be. All right, that's about all I got. Back to you.
All
Okay.
right, so we ran a little bit long today.
Close your screen, Thomas.
I'm closing it.
So I'm looking at the list. Was there anyone else that had something that they wanted to chat? Otherwise, I'm going to turn off the recording, and we're in